Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Call to Love experience. I am Jasmine Bellamy, your host, founder of Love 101 Ministries. I am a love practitioner, a minister, and a joyful disruptor with a redemptive imagination. The Call to Love experience is an invitation to join us on a spiritual journey as we examine the theology and cultivate the practice of love. This is a bonus episode. We're in the liminal space between seasons 1 and season 2. So I'm excited tonight that we will be having a conversation with our beloved community members on season 1 reflections. I'm so excited to be here with my sis, Reverend Candance Green, who will be actually on screen with me tonight. She's been behind the scenes all season. So come on up, Candace. Woohoo!
Hey, everybody.
Candace has been riding with me all 10 episodes, now episode 10.1, let's call it that. So excited to have you on screen and not just behind the scenes. I'm super excited that some of our beloved community members were generous and kind enough to join us in this crazy experiment tonight. So I want to start first by introducing Kimberly Foreman. Hey, Miss Kim.
Hello, good evening, everyone. So happy to join everyone.
So I have to say, Kim is like an OG in the Call of Love experience. She has been with us since our first live event in July of 2020. So she's definitely a Call to Love OG. So we're so glad to have you with us. And then we also have my sister girlfriend, the chaplain of all chaplains, Andrea Camarota. How are you, Andrea?
I'm good, ladies. It's so good to be here and see all your beautiful faces and join in. Thank you.
It's so good. And like Andrea is like a newbie to us, but she is so engaged and so all in that I'm really excited to be able to have her voice in the conversation tonight as well. And we may have others pop in as we enjoy this conversation tonight. But I did want to start just saying thank you. Thank you for being along on the journey in this first season. Oh my goodness. I started just going back and listening to all the episodes all over again, kind of sitting in them as an observer more so than someone who orchestrated them or curated them. And they have been some beautifully powerful conversations. Like I literally had to text every single person again as I was listening because I had been so tremendously blessed by them. So I am excited just to hear what has resonated with you, what stood out to you, what you love, maybe what you don't love so much. I'm a big girl. I can take it all. But this is this bonus episode when Candance and I were talking about it. It's just an opportunity for us to actually be in conversation with our beloved community. So much of what we do is through social, and we don't get that many opportunities to talk with each other. And so that's what tonight is all about. So y'all take center stage and we get to just be in a conversation. And I also want to say, feel free to ask me any questions too, like what made you do that or not, or what about this, and I'd love to even hear maybe what you want in the future too. So just, I want to hear everything that's on your heart. So thank you so much for being here with us tonight. All right. Who wants to start? Who wants to kick us off?
I'll dive in. I'll jump off the diving board and dive in. First of all, this experience has been amazing. Just I began to look forward to just these episodes and the conversations and diving deep and just thoughts of things I hadn't really thought of before or thought of in that way. Your guests, each and every one of them, just brought in some just different insight that was that really made me think and had me going, purchasing their books, reading the books after, and really getting into just what they were discussing. How did you choose
Mhm.
the guests? Like
Yeah.
what made you choose them for those particular conversations?
Yeah. So I'll say that I'll start with Alexis, for example. So part of how the Call to Love experience came about, I have all these beautiful, amazing one-on-one conversations, particularly in the context of my seminary family. And we were at a Faith and Justice conference in DC, led by Jim Wallace. And as we were walking across campus in deep conversation, or whether it was me and Alexis in a coach bus just talking, or just kind of hunkered down in this really deep conversation, I kept thinking about how to bring experiences like this to other people. It inspired me. We were all edified, and I just wanted to be able to find a way to bring those conversations to people. And so, with Alexis in particular, in episode 1, we told a story on the podcast, right? It was legitimately dinner conversation. And, we were at a barbecue, maybe being a little antisocial because we were only talking to each other. And we started talking about the woman at the well. And she was not she was like, what kind of love is that? And it required an opportunity to kind of sit in that and have deep conversation about that. And so I ended up getting on a plane the next morning coming back to New York. And I just opened up the scripture and I just sat with her question the whole ride home. And so I had known that the Call to Love experience was going to happen. I definitely had been led in that place, but I had no idea what we were going to do. But when I had that encounter with her, it was if Spirit was like, so now you know what the first episode is. So essentially, once we had that episode, and we sat in that and had that experience, and I was weeping all through the end of that particular episode. It was so rich. It was so good. I was actually reflecting today that I think there was something about doing what Spirit gave me to do and having seen it through, that when I got to the end, I couldn't hold it together again.
Yeah.
And so when I think about that, then the rest came. And the frame of the whole season came. Like, I knew that there had to be, the first piece had to be about just theology. What is it to get into the word and sit in scripture and see what scripture actually tells us about love. And so the first couple of them were my sermons, actually, before. And so Alexis, I wrote a sermon because of my conversation with Alexis. So that one was based on a sermon. Episode 2 with Nicole, the study of love is an invitation to wake up. That was a sermon I had done a year before. And similarly, with Nicole, I had posted the video on Facebook, and she immediately started texting me with her response. And she was so locked in. And I was like, well, look at that. Now I know who episode 2's guest is.
Yes.
And then episode 3 with Reverend Nigel Pierce, he's the pastor who's given me his pulpit often. And so that sermon was the first sermon I delivered at his church. And so that was also another opportunity to kind of sit in conversation with someone who we had been developing this conversation with. And then I knew we needed to talk about the Trinity. And that was really a lot of my theological studies at Fuller. And Dr. Patrick Olden really was the one who guided me through all of that. So there was no one I could have the conversation with but him. And then as I knew we were going to move into this more internal piece, like so from the theological into what the internal practice looks like. Those pieces started to come together. I had read Lisa Cologne DeLay's book, The Wildland Within, and I just had to have her as a conversation partner. I literally stalked her on Instagram. Luckily, she was. We were reading her book in a BIPOC Spiritual Journeys group that I was in, and so she came as a guest, so I got to actually talk to her during the actual event. And I was like, I have to have you on the show. And I knew we needed to dive into self-love, fear, self-love, and Reverend Jackie, her book, Jackie Lewis' book is amazing, Fierce Love, and she does a whole third of her book is on self-love, and so it was just the obvious choice as well there. And I had been with Reverend Jackie since 2019, and then Cindy Lee's book came out, and when I read the definition of spirituality, the way she talked about it as this embodied experience, our experiences of faith, I thought that was such a compelling conversation to have as we looked at the internal piece of love. And then the last 3 episodes were all about context, right? The hard piece of what it looks like to be in community with other people. And Mimi Haddad, if there was anybody I was going to talk to about patriarchy, it was going to be Mimi Haddad. And then I knew Dr. King had to be in the mix. Dr. King, I felt like I sat as a student at his feet at Fuller, and Phil Allen was my TA. And so it made sense to bring Phil into that conversation because Dr. King is so central to his work. And then when I was auditing a class on theology and culture, and I was so compelled by Cutter's hurt man framework. And it was just so deeply connected, or as I saw it, as a work of love. And I really did want to engage conversations of culture because so much of our definitions of love are from culture. And so the progression made sense to end season 1 looking at culture when we started really focusing on theology and to be able to put them in conversation with each other. So that's kind of how, like, literally how it was literally like a almost like a spreadsheet and a map. And the people, they just came, and everyone was so gracious to say yes. And so to be in conversation with them has been an absolute joy. But thank you for that question.
Yeah, when you were kind of rehashing each episode, I just remember some of the after episode conversations that we had.
Yes.
And how on time each topic was that kind of resonated with what I was experiencing personally.
Yeah.
But some of them just blew me away. With the episode with Phil Allen, totally loving your enemies and what that means, what that looks like. And you were using the scripture about the Good Samaritan. Yeah, it totally flipped that on its head for me.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Phil Allen gave me a great suggestion. He's like, you should be recording what you're doing behind the scenes. And I'm like, no, for season 2, we will absolutely do that. But in theory, this is kind of was inspired by that, this idea of, how do we kind of move behind the scenes a little bit? And so we wanted to be able to open up to have conversation with the community. So, but yeah, so season 2, we'll figure out how to get you some behind the scenes footage. So Andrea, you often are blowing up the chat.
I did walk in blowing up the chat because I'm a big fan of call and response. And but and so because I do think it makes sense to me too, speaking to that, because because you are hitting that mark of bringing these like sort of everyday conversations that we tend to have, especially in these, in the academic circles that we journey in together. So bringing that into a spotlight where everyone kind of gets the ear hustle in on that
Yes,
conversation,
yes,
right?
yes.
Because I think then and like you said, it fosters so much more past that, right? So for me, while each of the episodes that I've been able to listen in on have been wonderful, when you're listening to them on your own, like whether it's the replay or whether it's live or not, like I'm like, oh, I've got like, you're like thinking of things to say, or I have my own feedback or whatever. So you and I have had several conversations, post production, and because they're just so rich. There's so much there,
Mhm.
and it speaks to so many. As to piggyback on Candance's point, it piggybacks on. I mean, it speaks to so much of like what's happening in our lives,
Yeah,
um, and so it's I love because I think there is a sense in which what happens in academia can feel really removed.
yeah,
And that's from an application practical standpoint, what happens in the academy is kind of what happens in the academy and has nothing to do with like real life. And while I think there is an aspect of that is accurate, I think that nowhere more than in theological circles should that be less true.
right.
Right. And so there should be a more immediate connection, of what we're doing in the academy, to what's happening in people's actual practical lives and how those things overlay. So I think that's one of the real joys and the heart of what you've put together in this season is taking these conversations, these ideas, these thoughts, these precepts, and bringing them down into a space that is super conversational, super relatable, and then and then become a springboard for more.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. Yeah, I mean, I think that for me, I love our mantra, right? Love is a practice. And so it can't just be in a book on a shelf collecting dust, right? It is actually being put into practice in our lives every day. And I was having a conversation with a new mentee today, and there's so much that we have to unlearn, so much that we need to relearn, or I should say there's an invitation to relearn. And people are also really hungry for where to go. And so, I mean, it's all here as far as I'm concerned. And I know it's transformed my life, and so I'm just called to really share that with other people. So, and I love being in conversation about it because of from our context. We all see it differently, we experienced it differently, but there are just some fundamental truths, that kind of that we all kind of can grow and be transformed by, that I think is just really, really beautiful. And we can find inspiration from each other on, from our journeys and our stories. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think that's the part that I think is really
Yeah.
cool. So ear hustling is a great way to describe what the Call Love experience is like, for sure.
Yes.
What about you, Miss Kim?
Well, Miss Jasmine, I actually have a question for you,
Yes, ma'am.
related to, because I recall, back in 2019 when you first started on your back porch, and we had a small group and we were all talking and sharing, and we were very authentic and just expressing our feelings. And then over time, I've watched the Love 101 grow. I've watched quite a few episodes. I've been a student, for the past couple of years, so it was a little tough for me, but I did watch your replays. But I also know that Love 101 has translated into your work, and I know that it comes into play in your work. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit and just, ask you to share the experience with us of how you've been able to, translate what you do here at level 101 to the workplace. And how that all evolved for you, if you mind talking about that for a minute.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. I love that question. So, I call myself a joyful disruptor. And I disrupt the business context with love, and how it has, I lead with love. So, it is love has unlocked me to be my, an integrated, full, authentic human. And so I can't separate myself anymore into different parts to show up acceptable in different places. I show up as me in every place. And so love has really has formed me to be able to do that. Love has made me incredibly courageous. And so I say that to say, when I was able to create Courageous Conversations as a platform to really wrestle in the issues of culture transformation, org culture transformation, we were changing from, or we were committing to becoming an anti-racist organization. And so what does that look like to bring an entire organization along the journey? There was no other framework to use other than love. And so when I was invited to do that work, that was what I was going to do it from. And so it's been wonderful to be able to speak into the lives of the people at work through love in a business context. And it is one of those things that people are like, y'all do that at work? Yeah, we do. We are up to Courageous Conversation 23 coming up pretty soon. So we've been at it for 3 years, and it's been a beautiful journey. And literally somebody texted me today who's no longer with the company, and they said to me, you have no idea what you taught me about grace. And he said, you have no idea how many times in a day I'll say to myself, how would Jasmine handle this? Yeah. And that blew me away. It blew me away. And it's just, he's been gone for a little while now, right? But those seeds planted have stayed with him. And I think the beauty of what we've done through Courageous Conversations is that the whole idea of joyfully disrupting or culture was really about creating culture creators. So as everybody that was in the community committed to this transformation, being open to each other's stories, to be able to commit to listening and hearing and allowing themselves to be transformed, the goal was that you would then go out and change the culture where you are. And so that's the beauty of the people who may not be with us anymore. They are now joyfully disrupting the spaces that they're in. And so it is that, the ripple effect in a pond, right, from the rock thrown in. And so that's, or pebble rather, and that's the beauty of what's happening. So I'm excited even more so now, because as I start my doctoral program in the fall, I will be actually taking what I've been putting to practice and actually bring it through a research lens, and really studying it even more so to even take it even further. And so it's been really exciting. Again, it was an experiment, right? It was creating this space, but what I saw in that space is when you created space for people to, one, that you checked in on them, like, how are you doing? What's going on in your body? Let's breathe for a minute together. And then let's kind of have some deep, challenging conversation. What might that look like for us? And then hearing each other's stories and being transformed by narrative. I didn't change those people, right? Like, I'm so clear. I did not change them. What happened is they were transformed by the stories that other people shared. And what I loved is that people reported back things like, I'm not just a better employee, I'm a better spouse, I'm a better parent, I'm a better child, I'm a better neighbor, I'm a better community member. And so that's been the part that's been really, really, really cool. I gave a presentation. Like I do a lot of presentations now to like horticulture people or HR leaders. And someone asked me the other day, they were like, so I'd like to learn more about joyful disruption. I'm like, oh yeah, then let's just have a conversation because that is something I created. This idea of doing everything from the practice of love, everything. There's no space where operating from love is not appropriate.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's been great. So somebody at work calls me. She called me she goes, you are our love leader. And so
Wow.
it's been amazing to see how it has transformed other people. When they tell you like, I'm confident in myself in a way that I never could before because of the way you make me feel loved at work. So we don't have to check. I think the most important thing is, right, we don't need to check our theology at the door. We don't need to check our faith at the door. We don't have to. We don't have to do that. And I think there's just more opportunity for us to learn how to be the people of God in every space that we're in. And that's really I think the invitation, that we don't have to bifurcate ourselves, silence ourselves, parse ourselves in small pieces. Because if you really think about it, I remember in a paper I wrote, like it's the simplest line is like Christians ought to transform their context. I'm like, yeah, duh, right? We ought to. And so that's been the beauty of what it looks like to bring light into places where maybe people have been actively dimming their light. So it's been great. It's been great to watch unfold. More to come. More to come. More to come.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's great.
What a
Thank
gift.
you for that. Thank you for that. So if I can't say that any episode is my favorite, right? Because they're all my children. But if there was an episode that maybe touched you, or something about an episode that touched your heart or opened your eyes in a new way, is there one that comes to mind maybe?
I think it's the episode with Lisa.
Yeah.
That one, and I was actually going through a rough time just personally. So that one really resonated with me. And I actually purchased the book while I was doing the background work. I went on Amazon and purchased the book. So it's right here in my bookcase to my left. But I think that it was all God's timing.
Yeah.
With the information that was shared in that particular episode. So that was one of my favorites.
I love that. Yeah, that book, The Wild Land Within. Oh man, it's
I'm about to put the link back in the comments.
yeah. It's so good. It's so rich on so many different levels. Because one, I think because Lisa gives us permission to do the difficult work of introspection. And that's the work that oftentimes we prefer to avoid. And as she talks about Evagrius and the desert fathers and mothers, the beauty is that it was all welcome. And so I think there's something about our cultural norms that really silences a lot of that. And so her book to me was like fresh air, just kind of being open to having, like, it wasn't like you're not trying to hide your difficult or as Reverend Jackie says, your prickly bits, that they're all welcome here, right? Love can meet it. And so there's no shame because they exist. And so Lisa, I think, in her book helps us to be able to have those really difficult conversations with ourselves, if anything. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely needs to get that book for sure.
Yeah. It's a great,
Yeah.
it's a great book, The Wild Land Within. It's a great, great, great book. Easy to read. And then also, there is her podcast. Her podcast is amazing. She comes out once a week. Soul School Lessons is what she calls them. And she's like, up to 275 or something. She's been at it
Wow.
a really, really, really long time. So her podcast is awesome too. So even if you want a companion to the book, her podcast is a great way to kind of walk alongside her too.
That's awesome.
She's great. She's great.
Yeah.
She's great.
I'm thinking of the episode with Mimi Haddad,
Yeah.
because that I think the whole topic of the the cruelty of patriarchy,
Yeah.
and how can we um, yeah, how can we face that with love and reform it,
Yeah.
from a standpoint of love.
Mhm.
And so I found her insight and her research and her just incredible, like, base of of knowledge about the entire topic really, really profound and helpful. I think that, because I've had some conversations where, and I think people, I think there is this idea that, like, oh, it's, patriarchy isn't the problem, it's the way that it's done, as though it's like people get involved and mess it up, and it's like, no, no. There's just like, it's not like, that's not, it's just in and of itself, it's just not,
Mhm.
it's not a workable a system, and it's inherently oppressive, it's inherently unloving, it's inherently cruel. And so it's been so that's been something that's been on my, just, I think, just really present for me for a while now. And with everything that's going on within, the capital C church at large, I
Mhm.
think it's so important to continue to look at that and say, like, this is central to these issues that we're having, where people are finding themselves abused and hurt, traumatized. And how do we as believers, and we as part of this church, how do we help, and how do we fix and address and all these things. So yeah, so that was a very special episode.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It's what's so fascinating about that is as I listened back to episode 1,
Mm,
we kind of actually started the conversation about patriarchy then.
mm,
And so it was kind of funny listening back and just seeing how what arose, and how much of it is a reflection of kind of where I've been called to, right? So it speaks to what it is to be marginalized, what it is to be oppressed, particularly as women. And so by the time we get to Mimi's conversation, we had been already kind of priming the pump. And I will tell you, last summer when I was reading Communion, The Female Search for Love by Bell Hooks,
mm.
I got to a quote that I may not get it exactly, but it says, "A woman who chooses to love is the greatest threat to the patriarchal status quo."
Yes.
And when I read that quote, I probably flung it across the the porch that I was on,
Yes.
because I was just like, Belle, you
Yeah.
are speaking to my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Because to your point, when love is present, oppression can't also be present.
Yeah.
When love is present,
Mm.
marginalization can't actually be the
Mm-hmm.
standard and the rule.
Right.
When love is present, no one is less than, because we're all image bearers. And if there is a fight that I've been in personally a lot lately, it is about patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
because folks don't want to let it down. They
No.
believe in their hearts that they're feminists, but their actions all speak to the fact that they see women as less than, and that is not love. And I, I, I can speak the truth in love, as scriptures tell us. And because I have been transformed, I won't shrink to that kind of conversation. I have had to let people I love go, because they don't want to let it go. But it's unfortunate, but at the same time, love can't exist in those same spaces.
Mm-hmm.
We think
Mm-hmm.
it can,
Right.
like we like to rationalize that it
Yes.
can.
Yes.
I posted recently, equally, hashtag equally called. I love that Fuller started that
Yes.
campaign. I didn't plan this life for myself at all. There's no way I thought I'd be
Right.
doing anything with ministry, in seminary, getting a doctor. None of that. That was not my plan. I was called.
Mm-hmm.
I was called. And so, it's all of the isms are hard, right? They're all hard, to deal with, to face. And I think for me, the beauty is I don't. It's not a us versus them. Um, but I do have to take a lot of pushback, because I won't. I'm not going to continue operating as if the patriarchy is okay.
Right. Right. Yeah. Amen. Amen.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
Jasmine, our special guest is here. Would you like me to? Ready?
Yes. How are you, Lisa?
Hello, beautiful ladies. It's
Hi.
Welcome.
Yes, it's so good to see you. And we were just talking about your book a few moments ago, and so you are in like perfect time. Candace actually was sharing about how special your episode was for her, in particular, how your book met her at a particular time. Um, I mean, I think we've all been transformed by Lisa this year, which is such a
Aw.
gift. No, it's been so good to have you, and I'm so glad you could just stop by and say hi.
Yeah, and Jasmine, I just want to say, um, you just floor me. I'm blown away by your witness to love. Your work is just. I don't have good words for it. I would have to think about it to really say something that didn't sound all jumbled. But just as God works in your life and in your heart, and how that, I think about the yeast, in the dough. It's
Yeah.
just takes a little yeast and then it goes out like that. Like you were explaining about how people have taken what you've done and moved on with it to other spaces. I just thank God for your life, and so may God just completely continue to richly bless that. It's wonderful.
Thank you, beautiful friend. I appreciate that so much. Candace, I feel compelled to let you ask Lisa a question while she pops in and stays with us for a few minutes. Since you've had her book since she left, give you first right at a crack at a question as a follow-up to Lisa's beautiful episode where she joined us talking about the inner life of love.
Well, you know what, and I'm doing double work, but I was supposed to put her episode title up. Okay, there we go.
Doing good though. Let's see.
I try to talk. I try to put I did put the book link up on
Saw
social.
that.
Yes.
No, what I appreciate about what you're doing, Jasmine, is the having these conversations and bringing this to this space. I think we need it, but we didn't know we needed it. We didn't know we needed these conversations, and we didn't know we needed this kind of insight. And even after I got off of, whenever I get off of the lives with you, I end up talking to my friend Leonie, who's not in right now, but she watches, or she'll go back and watch the rebroadcast, and we just have discussions about how we needed to hear what was said, what was shared, how we needed that in our lives in that moment. And so I'm just very appreciative to be in this circle and to just soak it all in. And I don't want to be the one that talking so much, but I just want to say I appreciate it. And just reading your book, Lisa, and knowing that, well, I was just on a podcast with her just last week. So awesome.
That's just how your life goes. You just have podcast episodes with the authors of the books you're reading.
Yeah, you gotta, and she's so down to earth and so wonderful. And so I know just from the folks that I've told about the book, they've purchased the book, they've watched the podcast, they've watched online, they've listened to the podcast, and have been enriched by just your insight, Lisa. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for saying that. I wanted to mention too, to anybody here, but anybody who winds up listening later, the church called Sanctuary Church in Columbus, Ohio, is doing right now. They're doing series of sermons based on the book, and so there's guest speakers. The head pastor, Rich Johnson, is taking a sabbatical, and Micah Morgan, the associate pastor, is taking over, but also there's other people speaking. She's fantastic, and she's also a licensed therapist and does counseling work as well as pastoring. But they invited me to do the first sermon of the series. That was June 11th, and then there's a whole bunch of other people taking different portions of the book, and it's really fun to tune in and see, like, what are they going to say about a chapter and how do they interpret it and where is it going to go. So that's a really fun sort of iteration of the book, if you will. Kind of takes on legs. And so if you like the book anyway, it's interesting to see other people kind of riff on different portions and add their own experiences and illustrations in. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think what I've loved so much about your book is that you don't make the inner work scary. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you make it like, yes, this is what it is. And let's actually sit in this together without judgment. And that I can't even begin, and which is why I was like, I have to put this in conversation, particularly with love, because that's the hard work. That's the part that we don't want to do. That's the part we want to push away. That's not we'd rather make it look nice for Instagram, right? Versus what does it take to do like the personal excavation work? And your book just is such a gentle guide to doing that.
That speaks a lot to your readiness to do the work, Jasmine, too, because I have had, it really does speak to if you're ready, because if someone's right in the middle of it all, they're not ready. And I've had people, even podcast hosts, say, so I started reading your book and then I put it down right when I got to that. And I'm like,
hard truth.
Whatever you need to do, like God keeps inviting us to go deeper and to promises to be with us, but not everybody can just take it in one chunk or anything like that. However, spiritual guidance accompanies us wherever we are in the process. And to be able to, it still can be a really fearful thing, especially if you're in the middle of a healing process that's involved a lot of trauma. It's perfectly understandable that I wanted to take the teeth out of it in the sense of like, if you're stuck or afraid, that's normal. That's a lot of people. That you're not the weird one. That's normal human response. You're trying to save, your brain is trying to save you, and in a normal human way. And so we can move it through it together. You are you're going to be okay and you're going to be safe. It just doesn't feel like it. But I wanted to kind of, because I think sometimes we make things, we pretty them up a little bit. And if you pray and you have faith and you memorize the scriptures, what's so hard about that? And why aren't you happier or something? And I just think, well, if you've had trauma and if it's become bodily and you don't feel safe in your own body, I was kind of trolled by a group on Facebook, and they said, well, you don't need to do inner work. Once you're saved, that's all you need. I'm like, well, we're different. Because it didn't just go like that for me. If you've had trauma, turmoil, suffering, abuse, it'd be great if it was like that. That would be really cool. But I would, if I talked about things that had happened to me, my voice would get shaky. I would start to shake. It's bodily. And if we're not, if we don't know that, we can be kind of taken off guard. And so I just wanted people to kind of realize that healing isn't, you can't just talk it out. It's not just something you think out of your head. It's something that you have to encounter with your body, and you might be shut down for that. So just to kind of, I wanted people to understand that fear is something we have to grow to befriend. We can't just pretend it's not there. No fear, no, it's just part of the process, and to kind of normalize feeling not okay sometimes.
I love the normalizing it. That is absolutely the point, right? That life is not just without any difficulty or deep stuff inside of us that is invited to heal. Like it, that is real life. And the fact that we try to cover it up, like that's not, to normalize the truth of what it is, those difficult things, those difficult challenges, is really what I love about your book. And you just do it with such grace. It's easy, it's, in that way, that I don't feel judged. I don't feel like, that I'm a failure. Like you just are a wonderful companion, So thank you so much for that. We appreciate you, Lisa Cologne DeLay, author of The Wild Land Within.
Thank you.
Cultivating wholeness through spiritual practice. No, we love it. We love it. We love having you a part of the Call to Love community. Thank you for dropping in as my surprise guest tonight. I appreciate it. We respect your time, but thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Awesome.
That was cool.
Yeah, I love it.
That was.
I definitely, like, as soon as I finish this, I'm ordering the book and I'm following.
Me too.
There's work to be done, right? And I'm open to it. I'm ready for it. I mean, I think it just, following along with Love 101 since inception, I've transformed it. Is it 50? Is it 60? Is it 10? To me, it doesn't matter. It's a process, and I'm working towards it, right? And every morning when I open my phone and I read my Bible, and then the first thing I see is Jasmine's posts, and they're always on time. I mean, I just have to say they are always on time. always.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, Kim, being a part of our community. It's such a gift. Yeah, no, I, this was all created out of my own journey, right? And my own healing and my own need for transformation and my own invitation to healing. This is not, this was no glamorous walk at all. And so, it's a constant evolution. It's a constant evolution. It doesn't end. There's no goalpost. And I think what is beautiful, particularly about Lisa's book, or if you put Cindy's book in conversation with that, the Unforming, De-Westernizing Christian Spirituality, those books help us to have ways to help us meet all of those things that we're wrestling with. And I think that's the beauty of her book. I just finished a 2.5 year spiritual transformation community, and I literally submitted my final reflection paper today. In that reflection paper, the whole point of it was to write my rule of life. What are the practices that I'm going to have as a framework in my life for me to live the life of love that I know that I'm called to, that I want to live. And so what are the things, what is, I had honoring the body, communion, centering prayer and meditation, rest, Sabbath. Like, what are the things that I actually need so that I can continue to be on this journey of becoming? And so that's what I love about Lisa's work, Cindy's work, and really what Love 101 is really about is to help us be able to be love in our context, whatever the circumstances are. Usually some difficult something, right? Like it's usually some challenging something, but then also to help us find and experience the love and the joy and the peace that is literally all around us.
Yeah.
And I know for me, my life has transformed because of it. I know, it's interesting, so many different things as I listened back to the first season that touched on my own healing journey, my own woundings, like they just spoke straight to it. And so I don't write out of anything but my lived experience. And so it's really my great honor and privilege to be able to articulate and give language to what it looks like to live a life of love. It's been my great joy for sure. So with that said, as we start to move on to the end of this particular bonus episode, which is so fun, just being able to see all your beautiful faces and be in conversation with you. I do want to give you a little nod to season 2. So season 2 is all about love practitioners. And so it's going to be about being in conversation with different love practitioners. And I mean, for me, it's just been a joy to kind of find them along my own journey. And so to be able to invite them in to help us see how they practice love in their lives and how that might influence how we live ours. I'm really excited about. I'll drop one name. Ashley Abercrombie has already agreed to be on the show. Her book is called Love is the Resistance.
Love is the resistance.
So I can't wait to be in conversation with her. She is a beautiful soul. And so I'm actually going to be doing a little guest hosting on her Substack over the summer, and she'll be joining us in community. Is one of those who said yes to season 2. So all about the love practitioners. So I'm really, really, really excited about that. So it'll likely feel a little bit different, but it'll be about our communal conversation. But I believe it will be equally as inspiring. So I'm excited to share that with you all.
Mm. Mm.
Exciting.
Yeah. It's funny. It kind of came out of spiritual direction too, right? Like my
Mm.
spiritual director said, because I was, for my own desire, I was talking about I'm desiring. I've been very intentional about building my community and having that desire for blessed community, beloved community. And so she said to me, like, and where do love practitioners gather? And I sat with that question. And then Holy Spirit was like, at the Call of Love experience. I was like, right. So I'm really excited to be able to lean into that for season 2, coming September 7th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific. So you can mark your calendars for that.
You can count on it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Before I offer a little bit of a benediction, I do want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to Candace. Oh,
Yay.
all I can tell you is when I knew that I was supposed to do this show, I didn't know what I was doing. Right? I didn't know. I was like, I don't know. We're doing this on Zoom. I don't know. I didn't know anything. And I had been, doing this work by myself for a long time. And when I say that the Holy Spirit bought me a gift embodied as Candace, I can't say anything less than that. She has absolutely been a gift. She has just been, I can help you with that. She like, I originally was just like, can you tell me some best practices? Because Candace is a podcaster for years. And so I knew she was the expert. I knew she knew all the things. And I was really just going to get some advice to help me on my way. And she was just like, I can do this for you. I was like, oh my goodness. And so she has been such an answered prayer and just a gracious co-producer with me. And I mean, it's just been such a joy to be able to do this with her. So I just want to say thank you, Candace.
Well, it's been my honor. It's been my honor. I got so much from it. So I just thank you for uh, opening the door and allowing me to assist. And I love it. I'm ready for season 2. Let's go.
Woo!
I just read the little blurb from Love is the Resistance and talking about resolving conflicts you've been avoiding to create real change. And I'm like, oh, Lord.
Oh yeah.
So I'm ready. Come on, September.
Yes. No, I can't wait. So I know we're not going to do the prayer of examen tonight. But as I wrote my 8-page reflection paper, I had a beautiful reader who read my papers all through the 2.5 years, and she would always deposit blessings into me and send back my papers. And it was such a gift for me that she was just so gracious and loving, and so was such an encourager of my calling. And she used this beautiful prayer of Paul's that is one of my most favorite scriptures. And she wrote it to me as her prayer for me. And so I couldn't think of any way to end this bonus episode with you beautiful humans than by sharing that prayer and passing that blessing on to you.
Yeah.
So this is my prayer, that your love will flourish and that you will not only love much, but well. that you will learn to love appropriately. You need to use your head and test your feelings so that your love is sincere and intelligent, not sentimental gush.
Mm.
Live a lover's life, circumspect and exemplary, a life Jesus will be proud of,
Mm.
bountiful in fruits from the soul, making Jesus Christ attractive to all, getting everyone involved in the glory and praise of God. And that is Philippians 1 9 through 11, Eugene Peterson's Message Bible. And all I
Amen.
can say at that is Amen.
Amen.
Thank you
And
so
Amen.
much for that, Jazz.
amen.
Thank you,
Thank
Catherine.
you.
That's
My
beautiful.
Say that.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.